Friday night, fall in small Texas town.
Well, we're
like
here. 2 weeks
There
left in the 2024 season. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett and Heath here on the Central Texas Football Podcast, whatchamacallit, video, audio, awesome show. As we hit the semifinals, was a couple of surprises, especially I think in 4A. 4A Division One has been the division this year that has probably had, I think, two of the biggest upsets in the playoffs. But we'll get to that. At first, though, we want to thank our sponsors, Ranch Masters in Lake Whitney, Texas. At Ranch Master Home Real Estate, they provide 6 full-service agents specializing in farm and ranches. All you have to do is go online to ranchmasters.com for all the information. We do appreciate them being the title sponsor here in 2024. And as you can tell by the ad reads, the title sponsor is the only sponsor. So we appreciate them. And Kenny, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, buddy. How about you?
Oh, this is that weird week for me. I love the semifinals. I love the state championship week. As you know, and people that have watched our stuff know, we next week we're producing almost as many shows as we did for half of a season as far as the content. But also, I'm sad because it's the end of another season.
Yeah, I like that you probably had the better games this week. I think you may see a few more blowouts. I don't think you'll see kind of as close games that we've seen, when you get these regions matching up, because some are weaker than the others. And
yeah,
you got guys like Stanford that from day one, they're going to probably be in Jerry World and other teams like that. So this one, I love this week. I love this time of year, the last week, this week, and going forward. But, yeah, I don't know that we'll have as close.
And like you said, that's kind of usually how the semifinals go. I know some people have talked about, how do you alleviate that? Do you alternate who plays who in the state semifinal? Again, that comes down to travel and stuff. I'm not lying about this, folks. This is how I feel about this. I don't understand why UIL do not figure out a way to put a stadium in Central Texas in the Waco area and then just host semifinals and state championships. They would end up making their money back.
Yeah, they got one. It's probably not quite as big. It was back in the day. I think they used to host a couple of state championships back then. Didn't Ryan? Who was Lamarck? Was it Lamarck? Didn't Ryan that had a state championship game there?
Yeah, I think so. Well, the thing is now you need a roof. I mean, that's why. Yeah. You need a roof, and I want a roof. I know old schoolers will be like, "Oh, you should be able to play in the snow." Yeah, and I love the snow. I love snow football, but I don't want the weather deciding who the best team in Texas is. I want the state championship, and I think semifinals. And I know that'll never happen with the semifinals unless they did their own a stadium in Central Texas, because you wouldn't want all the semifinals to have to go to Houston. That wouldn't be fair to the Region 1s of the world. And you wouldn't want all the Region 4s to have to always go to Dallas. You can do that for one round, the state championship, because it's one team per region. But, yeah, semifinals, it's just – I don't know. I don't like it's always 1 versus 2 and 3 versus 4.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea. That's something for like Georgetown or Round Rock or maybe one of those towns to build a big stadium and indoor. I think San Antonio is probably – like you said, a little too far south.
Yeah.
Semifinals, but I'm kind of selfish. I like that the state championships are up there at Jerry World in Arlington, hour and 15-minute mind it.
I do too. Even though I stay here now in the studio and do all the shows. I went in 2015 when Houston held it, and the stadium was perfectly fine. The crowds were down, but that was just because, unfortunately, it was one of those years where it was basically all North Texas teams going to Houston. But the other issue was, and I say this, that they were in no way rude or anything like that, but the reason AT&T Stadium keeps getting it is because the people that work there truly know how to do the customer service, truly know how to host events, the niceties and the help and the just how awesome they are. If you haven't worked behind the scenes, it's hard to explain, but they are easily the easiest group of people to work for or work with. And that's one of the main reasons why the UL keeps coming back. Why do you want to go places where they might not be mean, but they might not be as nice? You're going to go where everything's awesome.
Yeah, I've never had nothing but great things experience there in Arlington. So yeah, I enjoy going there. And yeah, Houston. I think about Cameron Yo and Brock and
Yep.
Travion Smith blowing out his knee there, and he's passed away. Golly, I forgot about that. He passed
Did
away. He's
he
drowned.
drowned 2 years ago?
Yeah.
In fact, wow, man, you just took a dark turn here. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry. Sorry about
no, it's odd you talk about that because that's one of the things me and Coach Chad Worrell talk about multiple times. I used to have a Chad Worrell show, and I've known him forever now, and he always goes, man, just like you think in that moment, well, what if he wouldn't have tore his knee up? Maybe he's, because he was one of the special backs. He
Oh,
was
he
a
was.
special,
He
and
actually they came to Whitney and played, and our before we got the new stadium, we probably had the worst 11-man football field facilities in the state. It was horrible, and you had scouts and coaches, college coaches showing up for him, and Zach Smith at Grandview happened to play at home that year too, and but I got to watch him. I was up down on the field, and such an amazing talent. That kid was something else.
just a good dude. He was a really nice kid. All right, let's get into some happier terms. Well, not happy. I do want to bring up the game last week, as I referenced 4A Division One, as Austin LBJ got beat 2 rounds ago. That was a shock. I don't know if this is as much of a shock, but West Plains pulls off the stunner over Stephenville 42-35. Their quarterback Reed Macon had like 385 total yards of offense. He had 3 touchdowns. But West Plains does an onside kick, a surprise onside kick, and it felt like from that point on, Stephenville was kind of weebling and wobbling. And then West Plains stops a very, very potent Stephenville offense at the goal line. How shocked were you at that game?
I was shocked, and I was mostly watching Axtell Hamilton, but I would go back and forth between La Vega and then and Stephenville, and it looks when I would go in, West Plains had a 7-point. They were kind of ahead the whole game, and the one thing about West Plains is that they're young.
Yes,
That's a really young football team. From last week, looking at their stats and stuff, they've got a lot of kids putting up numbers that are sophomores and juniors.
Yeah, that was the thing. I mean, in our preview show through the year, we talked about it. Last year's West Plains team, and if people don't know, this is only their 3rd year in existence. First year they went 7-5. We had a Canyon ISD show last year, and so we covered them and talked about them weekly, or I did. I'm the one that had the show. And, last year's team, they went 12-2. They had a magical run after starting out 0-1 until Glen Rose beat them 45-10 or something like that. And they lost everybody from that team. I'm talking about Jarrett Diggs, King Talliant. By the way, King Talliant, one of the best names in football. And he was such an explosive player last year. He kind of became their jack of all trades. Kyron Wooten, Jordy Hernandez, just a full team of great players. I think they returned 2 on offense. Now, Reed Macon being one of them does help, but only like 4 on defense. And to me, that has been the surprise, is how defensively they're not great. They gave up 35 to Lampasas and 35 to Stephenville. But you know what? Those are 2 of the best 4A Division I offenses that was going this year. But what they've done is they've made enough stops when they've needed to allow that offense to keep just putting up PlayStation numbers. Since October 11th, they've scored 42, 45, 43, 42, 45, 42, 49, 63, and 42. Dude, you want to talk about being just consistent? They're going to hit 42 points every game right now.
Yeah, and to the defense, you had an offense in Stephenville with Gafford, Gentry, and Wilkerson, and they, 35 points is a lot of points, but man, they played, like you said, got their stops when they needed it, and good for West Plains, man. Happy for them.
Yeah, I'm happy for them too, and they're going to be playing basketball after this week because Salina will probably. I don't want to say, and I said this in the Sideline show. I think Reed Macon and West Plains can keep it close, but you're not going to stop Salina. You're just not going to stop them consistently enough. Nobody has this year, and Salina has played one hell of a schedule. In fact, one of their opponents was a team we're about to talk about now, La Vega, as Wimberley versus La Vega, Friday night, 7 p.m. in Georgetown. Dude, La Vega's on a roll, man. I mean, they have steamrolled their playoff opponents, as I think I think if I remember right, I was reading on Dave Camp. I think they're averaging 34 points a game. Bryson Rowland last week hit 235 yards. Courtney Parr has really started to come up at quarterback. And if you know the Parr name in La Vega, you know who. I think that's his cousin, Chris Parr. Infamously the Chris Parr of Waco, La Vega. That was some fun drama back in the day. But man, La Vega's rolling right now.
Yeah, and Courtney Parr is a sophomore, 14 for 17, 191 yards and a touchdown last week. My stats, cross-checked it with the Waco Trib and Max Preps. They've got two different numbers, but basically 22 carries for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. This kid, Bryson Rowland, I don't know if anybody knows about him outside of the Waco area or people that listen to podcasts, but he's small, 5'8", 5'7", but he is a tremendous running back. He's been starting for La Vega since he was a freshman. I think he's over that 4,000 or 5,000 yard mark. And I'm happy for. I don't think they've been this far since he's been starting on varsity. Coach Hyde's got a really good ball club. They're getting stops when they need them. I think Sealy kind of made a run there late to make it a little bit closer than what it really was. Did. And man, what a ball game you got with Cody Stover and Wimberley.
Yeah, for me though, Wimberley last week they hold off Sinton 36-33. They had a comfortable lead, but then Sinton made a rally late. And to be fair, Sinton had a chance to win the game at the end, but Wimberley pulls them back. Stover had 3 touchdown runs, 2 touchdown passes. My issue with I saw them against the LBJ. And I feel like, and this is in the preseason or non-district, and so we can all talk about the growth of teams, and that's a very valid comment. But I'm going off of what I saw, a team that I think is comparable, and I think La Vega and Austin LBJ are comparable. I think La Vega had a better consistent passing game. I mean, LBJ had a better consistent passing game, but Waco La Vega has Bryson Rowland. I think both defenses were solid. La Vega's defense hasn't got a lot of credit lately, but they've gotten better week after week after week. And what I took away from that LBJ Wimberley game was Wimberley, even with Nolan Watt at wide receiver, and they got a decent running game, but when they face athletic defenses, they have trouble. And they had trouble that night. Cody Stover basically was a one-man army, and he tried his best, but LBJ was just too athletic. That's how I kind of see this game. And
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I don't think Wimberley can stop La Vega.
Yeah, and I just think La Vega's defense, like you said, that they're going to give up some points. But I think they're just too good to let one guy beat them. And if you look at Cody Stover, he's thrown for 2,600 yards, 32 touchdowns, rushed for 1,400 yards. And it's kind of like I saw an interview with the Rowland brothers. Bryson's little brother plays defense. And the Kilo over at Sealy like, hey, we want him to throw the ball. We want to stop the run and make him beat us with his arm. They may want the same thing with Stover, and I think they picked off Kilo like 2 or 3 times last week. So that'll be interesting to watch.
And I think Kilo's a better passer than Cody Stover.
Who you got?
I've got La Vega 20. What did I say? I think I said 35-14.
35. Yeah, I got La Vega. I think of the 4 Centex and really Malakoff's not. I mean, you could. Call them Centex, but I think La Vega's got the best chance of one of the best chances of these. So I like La Vega, and it'll be a fun one to watch.
Oh, I agree. All right. Speaking of Malik, we're going to talk about him. We don't care. I'm from East Texas. I know Matt Diggs. Matt Diggs is really big into regions and stuff,
oh, yeah.
and where Malikoff falls, and I'm one of those East Texans that I never grew up thinking of Malikoff as East Texas. Malikoff to me is Central Texas, just like right on the line. I understand that, but I don't look at Malikoff like you go to Malikoff. You don't like. I know this sounds weird, but being in Central Texas, you could be blindfolded and dropped into a town, and you'll know immediately if it's your region. You'll know if you're in East Texas, if you're from East Texas. And Malikoff has never felt like that. So we're going to talk Malikoff, and also I think this is going to be a fun game. Paradise Malikoff Thursday night, 7 p.m. at Frisco Star Stadium, which is becoming the premier 4A and below playoff.
What does it cost for a 3A team to host the playoff game there?
I don't know actually. I know that like at AT&T Stadium, they don't really host high school playoffs now until the state championship, but that's because they're doing so many other things with concerts and things.
Yeah.
But I know that's one of the things that nobody ever understood was that Jerry is never overcharged, whether it was Texas Stadium or AT&T. And I don't know. Now, here's the thing about Frisco Star. It's the Cowboys indoor. It's blah, blah, blah. But technically, it's under Frisco ISD. So I don't know what the charge is there. Why? What's you have a concern or?
No, I was just wondering. There's a lot of, you see these 3A teams playing there, and I don't know if Paradise has got a hell of a booster club that can raise all that money. I know a couple of years ago, some people were talking about Whitney Winsboro there. I guess that was last year, and I was told, that's too much money. So I was just wondering what they run.
I would be kind of surprised. And again, it's under. I think now. I know Frisco ISD runs it, but maybe it's under Dallas Cowboys. Thing. If it is, again, Jerry Jones, we can talk about what he does with all the football on the Cowboys and things, but the one thing everybody in the UI will tell you that Jerry Jones has been great for high school football in Texas, and it's because he's always back when Texas Stadium used to have 3 and 4 games a Saturday. I used to broadcast all those, and AT&T. The only reason they're not doing more, I think, mainly. It's because of concerts and things, but I do think the UIL and all of them have kind of figured out keep AT&T as that last one. It's more mysterious. It's more, anyway. But anyway, I would be really surprised if the Star is that cheap. Mainly because if it's a Region 1 versus Region 2 game, it's gonna. It seems in 3A and 4A and below, it seems like it always ends up there at the Star now.
Yep.
And it's a great place for that because it's small. It's indoor. So if you've got 6,000 fans there, it feels like, oh my God, this place is the roof's going to blow up with all the noise.
Yeah, I was just curious. Didn't know. So, maybe that should have been our Matt Stubb question of the week.
All right, let's get into the matchup Thursday. Of course, Malakoff 14-0 as they shut out Liberty Ilo and keep their quarterback Trip Basinger basically on his butt the whole game, and they dominated 35-0. They'll take on a Paradise team that this is the furthest they have been as a program, and we kind of talked about it off the air, kind of like West Plains. This was a team that was supposed to take a step back after losing Austin Iglesias last year in a really big class of great players, but he was the catalyst. And lo and behold, with 8 returning starters, the Panthers are now sitting at 12-2. Their losses were early in the year to Godly, a 4A team, 17-9. Eagle Mountain, a 4A team. Both of those playoff teams, by the way. And both of those games were one-possession games. Since then, they've been on an 11-game winning streak. I think this game is going to be closer than what people think.
Yeah, and we talked about it before we started recording. I don't know about Paradise. I grew up kind of around that area. Aiden Winters looks like he's a pretty good quarterback. He's got a little threat kid. They got a good running back in Luke Brown. Aiden spreads the ball out quite a bit. There's several receivers with 20 or 30 catches. But if you go back to Malakoff, 35-0 against Liberty Ilo, Matt Jones really, he rushed for 154 yards, didn't throw the ball much. Tennessee had almost 100 yards, racked up a bunch of tackles. I was kind of in and out on that game, and just the further it got out and the more it just wasn't competitive. Really didn't pay attention to it. Man, I think I like Malakoff in this one. I think we've been looking at a Malakoff-Columbus collision in Arlington, and I think it's going to be that way.
I think it's going to be that way too. I do think Paradise is going to keep it closer than what people are saying. I think the consensus is 21 points or so. And I know this is only 7 points, but I think it's a 14-point game. But it wouldn't shock me if Paradise keeps Malakoff lower on their offensive output. Like I see it being like a 28-14 game. But yeah, I agree with you. I think at the end of the day, we all know, or maybe that's just what we want, especially since, the 4A Division I's been kind of weird. This is one of those few matchups that from week 0, everybody was like, man, Malakoff Columbus, if that can happen, that'll be absolutely awesome. All right, let's now move to Stanford 14-0 versus Hamilton 14-0, 7 p.m. Thursday at Mineral Wells Round Stadium, a very underrated playoff venue, by the way.
Yeah, I've been there with that 2 years ago. Holly Crawford, that was a good game.
Oh, that was, I remember that game. This is one of those games, you and I have talked about it before. Grant and I talk about it. There's a difference between Stanford 14-0 and Hamilton 14-0. And again, this is no knock on Hamilton, but you and I have said this all year long. Region 2 is just not as strong as Region 1. But in saying that, Hamilton gets here, and man, what a great win last week over Axtell.
Yeah, it's just Region 2 was, I think it was a great region, not because you had the greatest teams, just you had a lot of different teams in the mix. And it kind of came down to who we might thought it would be, Hamilton and Axtell. Axtell's up 14-0 coming out of half. Hamilton scores. A minute and a half left. Axtell's got the ball, 3rd and 1. They get snubbed. 15 left. Craig Horn just got his inner Dan Campbell and said, "Let's go for it," and they didn't make it. So now Hamilton's got the ball at Axtell's 38. Pass interference called, and the running back takes it to the house. They make the 2-point conversion. Axtell gets the ball back with under a minute left and just couldn't do anything with it. A crappy way to win. I mean, a crappy way to lose. Great win for Hamilton. And I talked with Steve last week. If it was a down and dirty, defensive, low-scoring game, I thought Hamilton had the upper hand, even though they trailed the whole game until about like a minute left in the game. They trailed. So, hey, hats off to Hamilton. Heck of a game. Hats off to Axtell. Great season, that's the first they've ever been. I think this is the first Hamilton's ever been. But like you said, a 14-0 Stanford team is just to me and to you and to most people in the state. And good luck to the Bulldogs. But I think Stanford's just too much for them.
Yeah, and I want to point out, by the way, everybody's going to talk about the going for it and all, but what's going to get lost in all the numbers was when Hamilton trailed 14-0. I'm trying to. I meant to write this down, and I was doing other shows today. But at that point, Axtell was, I think, 4 of 8 on 3rd downs. From that moment on to the rest of the game, Axtell was 0 for 4 on 3rd downs, and that's what won the game right there for Hamilton.
That's just good coaching. Making those second half adjustments and figuring out your guys up in the press box or whatever it is, making those adjustments and kudos to the players too for doing that.
All right, let's move on to our last one. And I think this one, and we talked about it, and it's funny you brought it up without me even talking about it when we started the show about how, it's the semifinals, it's a little down, and it usually is. This is the one round where I think everybody kind of goes, okay, we'll see what the games happen, but we're taking a break from football because we're going to get ready for next week. And it's usually because the region champions a lot of times will be out of whack. But this one right here, this one to me is the best one from 4A down, and that's Bremen versus Shiners Thursday, 7 p.m. at Cypress. Bremen last week beat a very good Grapeland Sandy's team 45-14, but this is going to be a battle. This is a war between two 2A blue bloods.
Yeah, and Bremen, they got Tank Scott. He went for 141 last week. The freshman quarterback, the coach's kid, Kozowski, went for 126. What I want to see is, Shiner's going to be a run-heavy attack, grind it out, run the clock. Bremen's got some size up front. They got some big kids. They got some fast linebackers. So that's going to be that Bremen defense against this Shiner offense. That's going to be fun to watch to see if what they can do.
Well, and we always think of Shiner over the last 6 years. You think of the Brooks brothers, and you think of that power run game. And Quincy Jones is really good at running back. But Shiner, it's that defense, man. Shutting out Junction last week, 27-0. I'll go back to the 3rd down conversion. I think it was like 0 for 14 or something like that. And the reason I always bring that, to me, 3rd down conversion is one of those hidden things of usually you win 9 times out of 10 when you have a 50% or more 3rd down conversion rate. And Shiner's defense and the offense can be, it's not explosive. Quincy Jones can be at times, and Carson Schultz is a really solid quarterback. But again, and I know it's not fair to compare them, but when you thought about the Brooks brothers, that you always had the power, but they always had that over the top. They can make a big play. They can't, I don't think, this week against Bremen. I know Shiner's the favorite, but I think the athleticism of Bremen is a little too much for Shiner. I have the Tigers winning a 28-27 type of game.
Yeah, I think it's a toss-up, but yeah, I'll go with Bremont, just being a homer, Central Texas homer. I think it's going to be a great game. I may go to Malakoff Paradise Thursday night, and I'll definitely be keeping an eye on this one.
All right. So, programming note again, there will be no Central Texas football episode next week, but we will have Central Texas football episode or content on our state championship preview shows. You're going to join me for the preview shows. You might even join me for a watching party or two. And we're going to have, so there's still a even if none of the Central Texas teams, but I don't see Liviga getting beat. I just don't. But you know what? I said that about Stephenville, and I said that about Austin LBJ, so maybe I could be wrong about that. So be checking out that. Again, next week, we're going to do 6 state championship preview shows, 6 live streams, and then probably 3 post-game shows. Usually we do a post-game show at the end of the night just to kind of talk about the whole game and everything, or the whole day of games. But other than that, I think it's going to be a little bit of a lag this week in the games. But if the teams win that should win, I do think we're going to have some great state championship matchups next week.
Yes, sir. I think so. Yeah, it'll be fun to do some stuff next week, kind of get together.
All right. That's going to do it for this week. If you're going to any games, please be safe in your travels. I hope your team wins. And until next time, he's Kenny Heath. I'm Terry Bennett. This has been the Ranch Masters Central Texas Football Show on L4 Media.
People train like moths to flame and